My name is Corey Autry. This is my testimony speech for Fundamentals of Speech. Here's the audience. Forgive me for my audience. I was born in 1988 in Gillette, Wyoming. The youngest of 7. First 12 years of my life were spent there. I was first introduced to the church when I was 10 years old by my friend Ben and his family, and they were my second family until we moved here. The first 12 years of my life were, it was an experience. It was filled with trauma and abuse and a lot of hurt. And then we moved to Oregon when I was 12. And that's when the physical abuse stopped. And then 7th grade, I met my friend John. John asked me if I wanted to go with him to youth group, and I go, I don't know what that is, but sounds like fun, so let's go. So, joined him out at the community chapel in Sweet Home. My youth pastor at the time was Patrick Bowler. I didn't know much about Christian people except they were nice, and their parents didn't seem to fight like mine did, and their families got along. I was 14 when I was baptized and gave my life to Christ, and I believe that's when the sanctification process started. And for those of you who may not know what sanctification is, that is the God's saving process, and for some it's a lifelong process. I think for everyone it's a lifelong process, but for some it takes longer than others, or feels like it takes longer than others. Throughout high school, I had great men that God placed in my life. Steve Thorpe, who was my wrestling coach; Rob Younger, who was my football coach; Patrick, who has been my pastor since I was 12 years old. He's still my pastor to this day. And even though I was going to church and knew Christ, I still struggled, because having a life at school with friends who were Christians and going to church but going home to a family who didn't know the Lord, it was tough. And then after high school, I joined the Navy as a CB. I was a mechanic, and I went to Afghanistan twice for 7 months at a time, and came back in 2014, and that's when I met who would become my wife. But that's a testimony and a process in itself. There's a lot of hurt, but beauty behind that story. I'm just very grateful for who God is and what He's done in my life. He has done more for me than I could ever imagine. And it was up until recently, I used to cast what I thought my father was on God, assuming that's what God was. I loved Jesus, loved the idea of the Holy Spirit, loved everything about Jesus, but God, the Father, I struggled with until a few years ago. But now, He has got me on a trajectory that I never thought I'd be on, and my goal is to become a counselor and eventually maybe ministry of some sort, and I'm just so grateful for that. And that's where we are today. Thank you guys for listening.